Recognized Uncle Walker D01. Recognized Emily of Arden D12.
Hello, team. Thanks for joining us for episode 19, unbelievable, of Whelmed, the Young Justice Files Season 2. Welcome to the warehouse. My name is Rich, and I am here with my amazing co-host, Emily.
Hey, everyone. I can't believe we're here.
Crazy. I don't even know what else to say. If you would like to get in touch with us, you can find us on Twitter at the YJ Files, on Facebook at Crashing the Mode, on our website, crashingthemode.com, on theyjfiles.tumblr.com, and at our email address, whelmedpodcast@gmail.com.
Calder, what have you done? He has in death done more to damage my plans than any living creature has wrought in 50,000 years.
And with that housekeeping out of the way, let's hand it off to Emily for...
Hello, Megan.
The title of this week's episode is Summit. The release date was March 9th, 2013, just 1 week after the previous episode on March 2nd. The in-episode date was June 19th. The director was Tim DeVar, and the writer was Greg Weisman.
Special guest voice credits, basically just the return of Fred Tatasciore. I'm going to say that's how you pronounce it, as Deathstroke. Everyone else has been around a while, so they graduate from special guest voice credits to regular cast. So that's it. We've been stalling so badly, like this whole day, recording, on mic, off mic. Let's get on to this mission briefing.
Just in time for your next mission.
In our pre-credit scene, we see Deathstroke and Black Beetle enter an eerily lit underground cave, followed quickly by Vandal Savage, Ra's al Ghul, his bodyguard Ubu? Cool.
Ubu, that's how it's pronounced.
It's never said in the episode as far as I could tell. So
I know, right?
Rich just knows things. Black Manta, Calder, Tigress, the Brain, and Monsieur Mallah on the light side, and the Reach Ambassador, the Reach Scientist, and several Reach foot soldiers on the Reach side, because there's so many people in this scene. Beetle demands all masks be removed before continuing with this summit. Tigress, Manta, and Deathstroke remove their masks, and the two sides begin their meeting.
In our post-credit scene, we learn that the Light's more public members, presumably Lex, Queen Bee, and Clarion, are skipping the meeting to mitigate the Reach's recent PR upsets. We also learn that the Light called the summit, and that Vandal and the rest of the Light have gained trust in Calder, so much so that they entrusted him with the security for this meeting. The Reach call out the Light for allowing the team to infiltrate the Bialyan Temple, but Calder puts the Ambassador in his place.
The Light then calls out the Reach on a number of failures, including letting the metagene-enhanced teenagers, the Runaways, escape, infiltrate the world, and free the team, as well as allowing Green Beetle and Blue Beetle to be freed by the enemy, who we know better as the Team. We learn that the reason Black Beetle is at the meeting instead of guarding the key chamber is because he has been summoned to retrieve Blue and Green's scarabs by killing them. And the Reach reminds the Light that they own the Earth, and the Light are only allowed to exist to be their puppets. The meeting then very quickly descends into chaos.
During the chaos, Tigress is knocked back into Ra's, who registers something strange about the necklace she's wearing. Obviously, the glamour charms Zatanna gave her to hide her identity. The fight is eventually de-escalated by Calder, who reminds them that they are all supposed to be allies. Calder reminds them that Superman and the rest of the League may soon return to Earth and swing public opinion, but his comments get both Vandal and the Ambassador monologuing about their plans from as far back as Season 1. During the monologues, Ra's very subtly approaches Tigress and pulls the glamour charm off of her neck, revealing Artemis's true identity.
Yeah, and then the Light quickly puts together that Calder must be a traitor, and the Ambassador orders Black Beetle to kill both Calder and Artemis, but before he can comply with that order, Deathstroke shoots both of them. Just guns them down. On a children's Saturday morning cartoon.
We'll get into that.
Yeah.
Save it for the podcast.
Before he dies, Calder activates a holographic message of himself explaining exactly how the Light has been playing the Reach the entire time. The Ambassador and Vandal argue again, with Vandal revealing that he possesses the crystal key and therefore has control of the war world. The revelation triggers Calder and Artemis to show that they aren't actually dead, revealing that Deathstroke is actually M'gann in disguise and summoning back up in the form of Guardian, Bumblebee, Nightwing, Batgirl, Superboy, and Kid Flash.
Vandal calls their double cross by bringing in scores of the Light's minions, ninja-y-like people. The team turns the tide again by revealing some of the ninjas to be Lagan, Beast Boy, Impulse, Blue Beetle, Wonder Girl, and Robin. Savage summons Clarion from a ring on his finger to escape. Black Beetle skewers Raish in revenge, but Ubu pulls a classic Ubu and rescues him. Manta and Calder finally face off. Artemis and Wally are reunited. Beast Boy and Mala have a gorilla fight, which I just absolutely loved. Kid Flash invites Bart to take over the Kid Flash identity once he retires. And Black Beetle escapes with the scientist, but leaves the Reach ambassador behind.
So, Vandal and Clarion then arrive in the War World's key chamber, taking down Black Lightning, Canary, and Captain Marvel. While back on the Watchtower, Nightwing hands leadership of the team back to Calder. Lightning, Canary, and Captain Marvel are then tossed out of a boom tube into the Watchtower as the War World leaves orbit. Captain Atom shows the evidence that Calder and the team collected, encouraging the UN General Secretary Zhang to rescind Earth's invitation to the Reach. The Reach scientist comments that if Lanterns return to Earth, they will find evidence that the Reach manipulated the planet in violation of their agreement with the Guardians. And Black Beetle responds that that won't be an issue, because they are blowing up the Earth. The end. It's just...
Yeah, nothing went wrong there. I'm sure it was a completely natural explosion.
Did you know that back in the day, we had to wait a full week to find out where that was going? That was real fun.
Oh, God. We have so much Aster left
do.
and right and everywhere. Let's do this. Do this.
Superboy, are you alright?
I'm fine. Feeling the Aster.
Where do we even begin?
I don't know. This whole episode is basically a big bottle episode, sort of.
Yeah, kind
Like,
of.
It's a big bottle episode.
It's a bottle episode, which people at home may not know what that is, but it's when you have one location and basically just your core cast. It just so happens that Young Justice's core cast is like 20 plus people in a giant location.
Right. Well, and the other thing a bottle episode does too is it often... Bottle episodes can also be referred to as, like, they're often in like one location, one place, but it also is like a flashback episode. So like it could be like, oh, we're saving up our special effects budget. Like they did this on like Stargate a lot.
Yeah.
Like we're saving up our special effects budget for the double length, super crazy fight at the end of the season. So we're going to have this episode where all the power goes out in the base or whatever, and we're all sitting around in a room talking about, remember that time back in season 1 when here's the flashback to save money. So it's kind of that, because they're basically just monologuing and recapping and filling in the pieces from earlier in the season.
Around the same time this was coming out, people may have remembered that Legend of Korra literally had to do a bottle episode to save money to finish the series because of all of that stuff, and it was legitimately everyone recapping 4 seasons of stuff with little flashbacks of actual clips. It was a clip show, and people were annoyed until they found out why they had to do it.
Yeah.
Like, oh, we'll deal with a clip show if it means you had to do it to finish the series and not fire anyone. Yeah, we'll deal with that.
Yeah. Well, we're going to wait for my Avatar The Last Airbender Whelmed spinoff for that conversation, because that may happen.
Oh no.
Oh, yes. Anyway, back to this show.
Yes. Back to this show that we love so dearly. You want me to start? You want to start?
Yeah.
Where do we want to
We
start?
kind of already started. I mean,
True.
It's one of those things that scenes like this should not work.
My original notes for this was this episode should not be as good as it is.
No. This should not work. And they do it many times during this series. You know what I mean? But the thing is, they know what the purpose of it is. Like, they know what they're trying to do, and they know how to do it. So it's a bottle episode, yeah. They're all in one place, yeah. There's still 2 pretty major fight scenes. Like, they still break up this monologuing stuff, and they don't just recap stuff that had happened. They also fill in some stuff. So like when Calder is in his holographic projection, he's not just talking about like, yeah, the light was going to betray you. He's filling in stuff like, oh, the light put a neutralizing agent in the Reach's drink, so that was never going to work. Okay, well, that's the first time we've heard of that.
Yeah.
So they do a nice job of folding it in. So it makes you want to pay attention instead of like, oh, they're recapping stuff I've already seen. I'm going to go get a drink, and make a sandwich or whatever. Yeah. Like, instead of doing that, you're like, oh, wait, what? They did what? Oh, I want to hear if there's more, right? And that's the way to do an episode like this. In addition, there's a lot of, again, character growth, even at this stage.
Yeah.
Yeah, some absolute craziness. Like, it's just, if you're going to do a bottle episode, this is a way to do it. Make sure you're doing more than just recapping. You can put other stuff in there without killing your special effects budget.
So true. So rewatching it this time around, I noticed for the first time, because I've been like trying to pay attention to little things, that this episode doesn't have music at the beginning for the longest stretch of time. And it only comes in the first time that like the light and the Reach attack each other. And that, like, it seems like a little thing that you wouldn't really notice. And I didn't notice for many rewatches of this show until like I was paying attention to it. I'm like, that makes this scene so much more tense. There is no atmosphere.
I didn't notice it until you put it in the notes and I went back and rewatched it.
We learn new things every day on this show, guys.
And I was just re-listening to, on my commute for work, I had a lot of driving last weekend for work, and I was listening to Morgan Jenkins' interview.
Yeah.
Where he's talking about the use or choosing not to use a wide range of senses whenever you're writing or doing a show like this. And you can't necessarily do stuff like, tactile senses and stuff like that. Yeah. But you can do music. And he makes some really interesting, insightful comments about scenes like the conversation between Connor and McGann, where we finally find out that McGann, went in and tried to change his memories. Oh. But that there was the engine hum, he says in the background. The engine hum like kind of bleeds into the music and stuff like that as the tone changes. I'm just like, God, guys.
Yeah. Like,
amazing.
I feel like no one's surprised that I would notice random things in Super Martian scenes.
Yeah,
so
sure,
like I kind of was aware of that, but hearing him talk about it, I was like, I'm just gonna go cry now because I love them.
It's so good.
It's a really good scene.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know what? I was a little taken aback, I must admit, by Deathstroke gunning him down.
Yeah, nah, me too. Me still.
Because it was both of them, what was going through my head was like, okay, like, it could be, but there's, like, if it had been one of them, I think I would have been like, oh crap, they just killed Artemis, and then what would happen, to Wally and like that kind of stuff. But when they killed both of them, there was definitely like, okay, they could do that because they've done stuff to shock me in the past. But if it's two of them, I don't know. But one way or the other, it was pretty brutal.
I feel like someone in my house can be witness to the fact that I'm pretty sure when this episode first premiered, I may have screamed while watching it, just going, "Oh my God, no!" and like curled up in a ball on the couch because I was willing to believe anything at this point in the show.
Yeah.
The Super Martian breakup shattered all of my trust in that anything was going to be a lie this season.
Yeah. And even the roller coaster that is Calder, hit this whole season as well. But, I mean, you make a good point. Like, you're talking about them, wow, Cartoon Network literally let them shoot them. But here's what they did, though.
Yeah, they show it. It's off screen.
It's all off screen. Right? It's all off screen, and they used up, they're allowed, this is something I learned when I was watching Batman the Animated Series back in the 90s. There is a certain amount of red that you are allowed to use to depict blood in an entire season of an animated series.
Yep.
Some of that may have changed in 20 plus years, but like there was I can't remember which episode of Batman the Animated Series it was, but there was an episode where he's like bleeding out of his mouth and out of his nose. Like he just, something bad happened. And I looked at it and I was like, oh, whoa. And you don't realize you're not seeing that until you see it.
Yeah.
And then, and I think what they did was they had all of their volume of blood, quote unquote, saved up for that spot on Artemis when she got stabbed by Calder, and on Calder getting shot.
And Ra's al Ghul getting stabbed through the chest.
Yeah, he got gutted through the chest. And you know what? I meant to go back and look at that scene. It's kind of off screen as well.
It's below screen. It is literally, you see it on screen, but the knife is just below where the screen cuts off.
It's below the fold, yeah.
Yeah. After that, this time through, I noticed that when after Black Beetle yanks his stabbing arm out, they don't show his arm again until it's back into being a normal arm. Like, that also happens off screen before turning it back into a normal arm. I'm like, oh, yes, I see what you're doing there.
But I love, like, the simple thing of, like, just Ra's slowly letting go of the glamour charm. And having it, like, slowly drop out. Shot. And so here's the thing about Ubu. I know Ubu quite well, and even I wasn't sure who this random bald guy was at the beginning. Because he doesn't quite... Like, Ubu is a big, bald guy. I mean, he's a big, strong, bald guy. And he speaks like that. But he hadn't said anything up to the point where he runs and grabs Ra's and, and Jets. So I was like, who is this dude? And then it took me actually a couple of watches to realize who it was. I was like, is that Ubu? We haven't seen Ubu the whole time. Why is he here? Like, why is he suddenly here? Oh, well, now I know why he's suddenly here. So...
I didn't know who it was until I read this outline and had to say his name out loud. So, there
Ubu.
you go.
I don't know why Ra's needs a bodyguard, but...
For this. It's this one circumstance.
If something bad happens to me, you need to get me out of here. And we'll talk about what's going to happen with that later in, I think, Crashing the Mode. Along
that same lines, and along with Artemis and Calder getting shot in quotation marks, I just want to point out, it gets pointed out online all the time, and I love it when we can compare scenes like this. Comparing McGann's transformation in this episode as the perfect Slade Wilson that she was able to trick the Reach and the Light to season 1, episode 3 of Boys Are Harder to Mimic. Like, this girl has grown so much, and she has so much more control of her powers, and like, we have not seen her successfully transform into a guy that I can remember. She does Red Tornado in season 1 at one point, but that's like, it's a robot. It's kind of different. It's not, doesn't have to look lifelike and super real.
Because she shape changes into Shimmer.
She shape changes into Shimmer in this one. In season 1, she was Tuppence Terror. She always shape changes into girls because it's easier.
Yeah.
And we see her do this in this episode, and it just fills my heart with joy to see her using her powers this well.
Yeah. Which still doesn't make a lot of sense to me why the boys would be harder. It for some reason, I don't know why, but it's just like, I don't know why would it matter, but you can shape change into like a mermaid. Like why would male versus female ones be different? Do you know?
I chalk it up to the fact that because she identifies as female and because she built her own body based on Hello Megan, that she, when learning all of this and when studying TV and people, paid more attention to what women look like on Earth and how to mimic looking like a woman, because that's what she wanted to do.
So as opposed to it being, it's not that it would be hard for any Martian.
Yes.
It's just that for her, she found it more intuitive. That makes a lot of sense.
That's kind of how I've always seen it.
I get that, yeah. And also just reminds me how this Martian is a terrifying concept. And I mean, horrifying. Like, think of any, would you want an antagonist who can walk through walls, increase her density for super strength and near invulnerability, like, be able to shape change into anything and anyone, telepathically change people's memories? Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, no, I wouldn't want it. That's why I'm so glad that she's not a villain.
She is one of the most powerful creatures on the planet. I've said it before, I'll say it again. You hope she's on your side. Yep. And in this case, Superboy, I hope, is still questioning a little bit.
We'll talk about that later.
We'll get into that later.
We'll get into that later. We know my feelings. But this time through, also, I picked up on the line that I really liked and wanted to share, which is Calder right before everybody reveals that like half the ninjas are part of the team.
Yeah.
He says, "For we value our true friends, and unlike you, we are not short on them."
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's one of those lines that I had never thought too much about, had never like hit me as hard as it did this time through. But it's one of those lines that like there are a few in season 1 that where I'm like, if I had to sum up Young Justice in one quote, it's that. It's that. It is the message about hope and failsafe. It is the message to the whole world in Misplaced. It is these moments of we are a team and we are a family and we love our friends. And that's what this show is really about. And I cry.
If you go back and watch the GTG Random, our friend of the show, GTG Random, I'm proud to say, go back and watch her tribute to season 1 and season 2 that she made right after she found out that season 3 was going to happen. That thing is chocked full of this stuff. All of the like I know I'm tearing up too. You're tearing up. Emily is tearing up.
I'm fine.
I'm outing you.
I'm together.
Because guys, it is so good. I think I'm just going to pin that to our Twitter page for a while again. It's just so good. And it calls back to that. And also in War, I think the AMV that we often watch and I often watch to get in the mood for recording also has that line as well. It is a fantastic, you're right, summation of the show. I love it.
But getting into the meat of this episode, beyond all of that, this is a phenomenal action sequence. And like, I'm not the person who generally says that because I don't pay that much attention to action sequences. They're not why I love a show. But this is a phenomenal action sequence. And part of it is that the fight choreography is insane. It's incredible seeing all of the super interesting ways that they played with this combination of characters is so cool. But it's also because there are so many great little character moments in there. Because it's not just, what if we just beat these guys into a pulp? It's the fact that in the middle of this fight of trying to make sure no one dies, Wally and Artemis have time to flirt with each other because they haven't seen each other in months. And my heart melts because they're finally back together. And this is all Wally and Artemis have wanted this whole season. They just want to be happy, guys. And it's adorable. But guys, I'm gonna shock the world and I'm gonna shock our whole audience. I'm gonna say something nice about Lagoon Boy. And that's
Wait. Okay, I'm ready. Go ahead.
I really like that even after the breakup in one of the previous episodes and after everything that has happened this season, I like that Lagoon Boy is mature enough to still save and protect McGann when she is being attacked by a fire dragon. Mm-hmm. It made me so happy.
I appreciate that he was mature enough to save her, have a moment where she says, "Thank you, Lagan," and then he gets up and continues to get the job done.
Yes.
That's the part I think that really nails it. It's not that, he helped her, because he still cares for her, right?
Yeah.
But it just that time where he doesn't get weird when she like says thank you, and he doesn't think like, our relationship's back on, right?
And he doesn't have some sassy comeback about like, well, of course I saved you, you're part of the team, or anything like that.
Right.
He doesn't use it to be passive aggressive. He just helps her, and she thanks him, and it's good. It is good and wholesome, and I really liked that. Who thought we would ever see the day 19 episodes in, and I'm finally saying something nice about Lagoon Boy. And I love the little conversation between Kid Flash and Impulse about passing on the legacy, and how Wally's just like, me and Artemis just want to get back to college. Like, seriously, we just want to get out. We've both almost died too much this season. You can be Kid Flash.
And you know what's great too is that, I mean, Impulse really like picks on him in that in particularly the first episode where he shows up. He picks on him about like, you don't have the, the family eyes and, all that kind of stuff. And he's so genuinely like honored by the, this offer, like it just shows like the hero isn't the powers, right? The hero is the person, and Impulse knows that. you know? And I think that's just fantastic. This thing
Yeah,
next
this thing
in the list.
That's next.
I did not catch this. And so the Black Manta Calder face-off was inevitable.
Yes.
In a good way. Like, you really wanted to see that happen.
Yes.
That the choreography was amazing. The conversation was amazing.
Yeah.
Like, everything about it was amazing and a little bit heartbreaking. And then you found something that broke my heart in a horrible way.
Yup. So this is a little fun fact, fun in quotation marks, that I know because of the internet and found confirmation of on the YJ Wiki. This episode takes place on what would be Father's Day of 2016 when the season is set. Black Manta gets betrayed by his son on Father's Day. Yup. Thank you, YJ Wiki, for giving me a source for that, because I was vaguely aware of it, but needed confirmation, and it is on there, on the page for Summit. It's like, this is Father's Day. This is what happens.
I don't even know what to say about that Easter egg. Guys, I know what I have to say, and I'm going to say it in the Canary Debrief for our final episode. I'll save it for then. But that whole thing, the thing where he's like, I need to teach you to be ruthless or something like that. Yeah. And then Calder just takes him down. And he's like, I hope that was ruthless enough. I hope you're proud, you know, kind of a thing. But then that last scene where he's, you know, they're like, you won. And he's like, oh, everybody got away and blah, blah, blah. And they're like, no, revel in the winning. And then he just looks over his shoulder at his unconscious father that he's beaten into unconsciousness on the ground. And you just feel that conflict in him. Because, like, his dad, as opposed to Father of the Year Sportsmaster, you really did feel like Black Manta loved his son.
Yes, absolutely.
Like, loved him, respected him, like, the whole deal. Like, why he either didn't know Calder existed or, I don't know. Like, he never... Actually, so wait, in the video game, I have to go watch that scene again. In the video game, I think that it was Black Manta, as he was going unconscious, said something to Calder.
I believe you're right, that he tells Aqualad to go ask Aquaman about it.
About his dad. Yeah. About his dad or something. If that's the case, this opens up a whole thing. I would love to have... You know what I'd love to have? A bunch of, like, 6-episode, character-specific arcs. I mean, the comics are great, but, like, animated arcs. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, like, that's just an animated thing of, like, you know,
dealing
Calder's
with
life.
All that.
Yeah, or before it, like, leading just parts of his life and what happened to him and stuff like that.
And this is just something that I want to throw out because it didn't click in my head until we were just talking about this scene right now. That confrontation and the way Black Manta talks throughout that confrontation is just now dawning on me that it reminds me a lot of some of the scenes in Avatar, because we were talking about Avatar earlier, between Zuko and Firelord Ozai of it's, if you haven't watched Avatar, I don't know what you're doing with your life. Yeah. Like, watch it right now.
You should go watch it, yeah.
Everything with them, and it's just the line that will always be incredible is Firelord Ozai shouting, "You must learn a lesson and suffering will be your teacher," before fire blasting his own son in the face. Yeah. So, like, that kind of level of, like, you need to learn how to be me, which is always an intense theme in this type of situation, this type of confrontation. That just dawned on me now, and I wanted to share.
Yeah, there's a level of arrogance, a level of superiority. There's a difference between being a dad and wanting to teach lessons and teach, you know. I don't want my kids to be me. I want them to be themselves, which I hope is better than me. You know, but, you know, no pressure. But yeah, feels like Calder was appropriately ruthless, in my opinion. Not appropriately, but should have been ruthless enough for his dad.
Yeah.
Anyway, Father's Day. Thanks for that gut punch Easter egg.
Sorry.
Appreciate it.
And my final little note here that, again, things that only dawn on me on my 10 millionth rewatch of the show is everyone thinks it's adorable, where everyone is very happy at the end of this episode and everybody's hugging each other and Beast Boy runs up and hugs Artemis and it's all cute. But this episode, it kind of like clicked in my head where I'm like, it's so touching to see poor little 12, 13-year-old Beast Boy who has lost so much in his life finally be in a situation where he gets someone back. Like, this kid has been losing things for most of the time that we have seen him on this show.
Yeah.
And he gets Artemis back, and like it finally, like I finally really heard it if you listen to the voice acting. And I cannot remember for the life of me who voices Beast Boy.
His name's Logan. I remember that.
But he sounds like he's on the verge of tears in that scene. Like he's happy and he's smiling and he's laughing, but there is a note in his voice of like on the verge of crying because he is so happy that for once someone is not dead.
I also found it interesting. I thought it was kind of interesting. He's like, no more faking anyone's death for at least a year. And I'm like, a year? That's like nothing. And then I realized, oh, he's 13. A year is forever, right?
It is.
Yeah.
And also, we know we can't put like firm restrictions on Nightwing with stuff like this. Nightwing's just gonna pull whatever needs to be done.
What's gotta be done.
But I agreed with Beast Boy on that line. Like, yes, please, never again.
One of the things, there's so much subtlety in storytelling in Young Justice, subtlety of character development. Where little scenes, little like few second scenes, like the scene where Superman wants to save the Krolataeans and doesn't, right? Such a like 30-second huge character development moment. I love that Raish, he's been alive so long, not as long as Vandal Savage, but Savage also isn't mystically oriented. Like Savage is politically savvy and oriented, but Raish is literally a geomancer. He's someone who pays attention to ley lines and feng shui and like the flow of energy through the planet theoretically to, you know, I mean, he's been an eco-terrorist his whole career in the comics where he believes that the planet would do better with 6 billion fewer humans on it and let the Earth do what it's going to do and the best will survive kind of thing for humanity, right? So to have him be the one who's like, he doesn't know exactly what it is, but he definitely, like, once he gets super close to Artemis, recognizes something, whether it's something physical about, like, the kind of gem she used or something like that, or whether he just sensed something mystical coming off of him. He's not a spellcaster, but I love that his, like, intelligence and experience played into this. And then the way he just subtly walks right up to Artemis. And it's not like violent or calling her out or like pointing a finger and being hyperbolic, you know, like, she's in disguise. You know, he just walks right up to her and she's like, great one. And then he just very calmly reaches up and pulls it off. Because if he's not being a threat to her, why would she even think to stop him?
Yep.
Right?
And if he's wrong, all he's done is take a girl's necklace off.
Right. Exactly. That's subtle character development on a bunch of different levels. And also just makes more sense.
Yeah.
You know, it's not drama for drama's sake. It's much better drama because it all makes sense. Yeah, I love it. All right. Well, let's get on to the debrief here.
Stick around. Class is in session.
All right, so this week's Canary Debrief is about answering the questions that you promise at the beginning of an episode or a novel or a series. So, as I mentioned earlier, I was re-listening to my discussion with Morgan Jenkins from Going In Blind. And back in that discussion, we talked about the importance of compelling your watcher, reader, player to ask the right questions. Compelling those questions draws your audience deeper into the story that you're creating because they are reaching for those things. They are intrigued enough to ask those questions. The challenge here is that you need to then answer those questions. And some of them should be answered as your story progresses. So this instills trust in your audience that you're paying attention to what it is that you're doing and that you will fulfill the promises that you've offered. As Emily mentioned, this episode is largely, as we talked about, a bottle episode, with the majority of the show's cast being present all in one location and answering, in this case through drama and action, not just monologuing, the questions left unanswered. Very little is left unanswered after this episode. And what is left isn't directly related to the arc of this specific season. Leaving loose strings to be picked up in future projects is fine, as long as the promises you make during the early chapters or episodes of whatever you're doing are wrapped up nicely. Your audience will hopefully trust you by that point. And when you're writing a series of novels or comics and TV shows, whatever it happens to be, and even when you're running role-playing game sessions, that trust will be the foundation of your audience's emotional memories of that creative project that you're working on. In the case of the first season, for example, that arc, everything related to that arc, all of the questions for that arc were answered by the end, with a couple of exceptions. One, who is providing these boom tubes and this equipment and that kind of thing from Apocalypse was a question. And the question brought up in the final episode, which was what happened to the 16 hours. Other than that, the major questions like who is the mole, who are the light, what is the light's plan, all of those things all got answered very satisfactorily. The same thing happens here in Season 2. We get the answers to the main questions going on in this season. For example, who is this new partner, quote unquote? Why are the Krolataeans there? Why are all of these aliens here? Why? Not just the answer to what the 16 hours was, but why they even did this in the first place, which answers the one of those leftover questions from Season 1, which is when Vandal and Clarion leave the tower, Vandal stops Clarion from basically nuking the place and killing everybody in it. And he does that because he says, whatever happens now, we need them alive for part 2. Which was answered. Like, why would you do that? That sounds ridiculous. But now we find out, no, he wanted them to be on trial. He wanted them to go to Rimbor. He wanted that distraction. He wanted this high-profile case that he could do things like get Mongol to Earth with the War World so that he could maneuver to take it over. All of this makes sense. But as long as you answer the majority of those questions within the context of, say, the novel or the season that you're working on, you're good. Leaving a few loose strings or something that you introduce toward the end of that chapter or of your story, whatever that happens to be, you can carry those through forward and not worry about not answering those. It's not really a cliffhanger. It's more just a tease. And that's it. All right, let's crash what little mode we have left.
Tell us something we don't know yet.
Sorry, BB. We can't risk altering the time stream. We do that, we're all feeling the mode.
In Crashing the Mode, we'll be discussing spoilers for Young Justice and the greater DC universe. If you are spoiler wary, please consider this your warning.
One more episode happens. That's a spoiler. I don't know. Like, what do we talk about here?
We got one episode
There's
left
nothing.
in the season. Well, there is one thing, which is for... If you're only familiar with Ra's al Ghul from the Chris Nolan Batman movies, then you may look at him like, oh, he's been stabbed through the chest. Is he going to die? Is he not going to die? It's a comic thing. But, he'll come back to life. But in this case, the reason why, as opposed to Vandal, the reason why Ra's is immortal is because he has access to something called Lazarus Pits, which, again, as I mentioned before, he's a geomancer, so he pays attention to the ley lines of where energy lines are crossing around the world. And at some of these locations where you have these crossroads, there are these pits. And he has either created them or discovered them, depending on how you look at the lore. But if he is bathed in those pits, in a pit, he will regenerate and be healed from whatever damage he's taken. They also did this in, they did the Lazarus Pit shtick in
brings
Arrow.
Back half the cast.
Well. Right, exactly. What it does do is it temporarily drives you a bit crazy, but it also invigorates you, youthful. There is a brilliant episode of Batman Beyond where Talia, who still looks young, comes to an 80-plus-year-old Bruce Wayne and offers him a dip in the Lazarus Pit. That episode is amazing and also messed up in some really weird ways, but a great episode. You can check that out. But in this case, Ubu, as we mentioned earlier, being his bodyguard, I get, why does Raish need a bodyguard? Well, because of cases like this, where he is so mortally wounded that he needs to escape and directly be taken into a Lazarus Pit. So we'll see how that goes. Also, if you've seen the Brandon Vietti-directed, brilliant animated movie Under the Red Hood, Jason Todd's return is directly related to a Lazarus Pit as well. So take a look at that. That's awesomely messed up.
So, we're laying the foundation for possible Red Hood in season 3 with a giant question mark. Because we have no reason to think that, but...
No. We also haven't seen Talia yet.
She's either, in the comics.
So no... Oh, that's right. She is in the comics. Oh, good. That's right. I have to go. Man, I keep saying this, man. I keep reading them, like spot reading them, and I need to sit down and read them from beginning to end.
Next spin-off.
Right. I guess is Crashing the Mode? I don't know. Future plans? So we will be reviewing the comics.
Crashing the Mode for real life.
For real life. Emily and Neal and I have had some discussions about some of the things that we're going to be doing, and so we will be doing a Whelmed-style deep dive into the comics as well at some point soon, I am imagining. Emily's dancing. She's so happy. So let's look at... So that way I'll actually be reading what I should be reading. All right, enough of that. Let's get on to some fan service.
I've admired your stance on animal rights for years.
Emily, what is one of our last fan services of this series of the show?
One of our last fan services of this season of the show, because that's crazy how are we here, is a Tumblr that I stumbled across through the magic of the internet called Daddy Make Me a Superhero, which is a Tumblr run by a dad where he posts pictures of all of the superhero paper art that he makes for his 2 young sons. They are all these amazing layered cutouts of all of these iconic characters, and they look incredible. He's made the entire original Young Justice team, a few of the season 2 characters as well, along with the Justice League and the Teen Titans and a bunch of other fantastic stuff. His art is just incredible, and you can clearly tell how much love went into every single piece of fan art that he's made.
It's amazing. He even shows like early drafts with some later drafts of what he does, like how he improved or changed things.
He did the entire Young Justice team a few years ago, I think, and then either this year or last year around that time, he decided to redo the entire Young Justice team because it was one of the first things that he'd made. And just seeing them side by side of where he was like, I changed the colors here and I did this different thing with this. And it's so cool. The cutest one for that being that he redid Kid Flash and asked his sons which one they liked better. And his older son thought that the newer Kid Flash was better just because it looked better. And his younger son thought that the old Kid Flash was better because it had lightning streaks. And that was his only reasoning. I'm like, that's adorable. And I want to read all of the captions he has on all of his art and just go through.
Yeah.
So check that out.
It's pretty amazing, guys. So we'll have a link to that in the show notes. Go check it out and tell him how cool a dad he's being. I love it. Well, with that, I think we can wrap up this mission and head out of the warehouse. Of course, the best way to support the show is to tell a friend. You can also support us with a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or your podcatcher of choice. Ratings and reviews push us up in the search strings and help new people find the show.
Please continue to hashtag #BuyYJComics on Comixology, especially if we're going to review them. You can pick them up there and read them along with us as we talk about them when that starts to happen eventually. And to buy the show somewhere online until the DC streaming service launches. It is available most places you buy your media online. Support the show. You can also now use hashtag Young Justice Outsiders when talking about upcoming season 3. And if you want to help us get more episodes, more Secret Origins, more actual play podcasts, and all of the other awesome stuff that we do that you guys like, please consider supporting us through Patreon. For just a few dollars a month, you can help us do even more with the show while getting some great rewards for yourself. And remember,
Stay whelmed, everyone.
You've been listening to Whelmed, the Young Justice Files podcast. Our hosts are Rich Howard and Emily Booza. Our editor and producer is Neal Powell. Our theme was composed by Emily Mio. Our logo was created by Kevin Bates. Whelmed is a fan-made podcast and is not officially affiliated with DC Comics, DC Entertainment, Warner Brothers Animation, and any other owners of Young Justice or its related source material. As such, these companies have sole ownership of all symbols, images, names, logos, and proprietary material related to Young Justice. Original content of this podcast is ours under Creative Commons. Thanks for listening, and stay whelmed.